Good afternoon, Jeremy. Well, some time ago, I think I told the story of how one of the things I remember about covering the former president, Jacob Zuma, was the amount of time you spent waiting for him to arrive at events, and he would just be so delayed. President Ramaphosa came in with the promise that, there's a new way of doing things, and their meetings would start on time. There would be punctuality to make sure that everything happens at the time that is promised. Well, that promise is being broken as we speak right now. The media statement talked about 3 p.m. that the announcement would be made, and as you rightly point out, we're now creeping up to almost 4 p.m. And yet we are yet to see the president walk in. We keep an eye out to the left of this building where we expect that he will be coming in from. The protocol officers usually come out first and place whatever statement he'll be reading from at that podium, and then you start seeing a lot of movement, and then he comes in and things will start happening. To the front of the podium, Jeremy, there's a table that's been set up with 2 chairs. That's for the ceremonial part of what will happen this afternoon, because after the announcement of the changes to the cabinet, then whoever is new to the cabinet will then have to take oath of office. So that already gives you a signal that there's going to be that kind of a ceremony taking place, so you can start making guesses that there will be people, at least one person will be introduced to the cabinet who will need to take the oath of office. Karima Brown joining me. Am I correct, Karima, that you can read a lot from the very fact that there's that table that's been set up, because people who already have taken the oath of office and are members of cabinet and are just simply being shifted around don't need to take the oath again. So we are getting someone new, at least one person.
I think so. I think there's a lot to be said for the aesthetics in the room and also for the optics. You made an interesting point earlier in your earlier crossing. I do think that one deputy minister is going to be made a full minister. Remember, the president has 2 sets of drivers to look at. He needs to look at conditions in the African National Congress, and he needs to look at what is required to restore good governance. And he's already said that he wants to make government smaller. So I suspect that he might use this opportunity to perhaps merge one department or 2 departments into one, and I suspect that he might move some people around. The big question that everybody, of course, wants to know is what happens to the deadline of the Democratic Alliance around Batabile Dlamini. I think the president is being very clever and very smart about how he's managing this. I don't get the sense that Batabile is necessarily going to lose a job. And I think the reason why that is so is because President Ramaphosa will simply leave it to the courts to make the decision. And if he leaves it to the courts, he doesn't take the political heat in the African National Congress.
In what sense does he leave it to the courts? Because, Karima, you and I know the courts have already spoken. The Constitutional Court in that case of freedom under law, and it's not the Litigation Center, but one other organization, the Black Sash, has already said that the testimony that she gave before, former Judge President Bernard Ngwebe, some of it under oath and filed affidavits, could potentially, there's very strong indications, was the word that they used, the phrase that they used, that it was factually untrue. And actually the ConCourt directed that the registrar of the Constitutional Court should actually now take this up with the NDPP, yes, National Director of Public Prosecutions, to see if Batabile Dlamini can be prosecuted. So in what way could President Ramaphosa kick this ball back to the courts? Is it about his hand being forced to remove her by the courts?
No, I think it's a simple matter. President Ramaphosa doesn't decide who gets charged. That is a function of the National Prosecuting Authority. And this president has been a stickler for the rule of law and signaling that he will be guided by it. What needs to inform us about Batabile Dlamini and his approach is the fact that he is not opposing the court's decisions. And that gives us an indication that he's not going to fight. So he essentially will abide by what the institutions of the criminal justice system says. And when he does that, he leaves that to a separate arm of government. He doesn't interfere. So in a divided organization, he cannot be accused of purging Batabile Dlamini, but he can get the outcome that will restore the confidence, but it doesn't have to be made by him. So I think if she goes, she's probably going to follow the path of Gigaba, who's going to have to fall on his sword. But President Ramaphosa would have sidestepped a very difficult political maneuver, because she is, of course, the president of the ANC Women's League.